This episode of Reasonably Spontaneous Conversation is brought to you in part by Clay Boykin Life and Business Coaching, because we all get stuck at times. For more information, visit clayboykin.com. By Janelli Bean, for fun and engaging children's books with cute and colorful characters. For more information, visit janellibean.com. And by Wise Owl Organizing, simply set up for you. Organizing consulting and clarity coaching, virtual or in person. For more information, visit wiseowlorganizing.com.
Why, Sande Hart, as I live and breathe, welcome to Reasonably Spontaneous Conversation.
Oh, well, good. Thank you, Dennis. It's a delight to be here with you.
Well, it's wonderful. I have been enjoying the Liminal Odyssey so much. This is much like a rosary or a prayer wheel that I get to the end and then I get to just begin at the middle. So begin at the beginning and I can pick it up anywhere. And there is so much of your wisdom and your life and your stories that went here. What I would like to do is for our fellow travelers, people that already know about you, but also the people that don't know about you, could you give us a little bit of background on the Liminal Odyssey and what it has, how you came up with this as a concept?
Well, the concept developed in the process of writing the book.
Mm-hmm.
I really set out to write a very different book.
Mm-hmm.
In 1982, I found myself at Peace Sunday, a no nukes rally and music festival at the Rose Bowl in Southern California amongst 100,000 other people. And this wild experience happened to me that I don't mind sharing with you, but I'll just say that over the course of, the last probably 30 years, I have been encouraged to write this story. And I just, when I sat down to write it, I didn't have enough of a story to write. But it was such a fantastic story. Can I share a little bit of it with you?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to do that because I want to do two things. I want to know the story and I want to know who was Sande at that time. Who was she? And what was her perspective on life and what was her, because that will give me a good sense of the center of the story.
Well, and I know you've read the book and it's all what chapter 1 is about, and its title is What About the Dog? First, who was I? I was an aimlessly wandering teenager. No, I was 21 years old of a teenage mentality, really. I really hadn't found myself. I was really just sort of in between here and there, in between the world of reckless creative fun as a teenager almost, and an adult where I really found my groove and found my a calling in life, which at that time ultimately would become a sales career. But I went to this event because it was a rock concert. And I was
going to was this? What year was this?
This was in 1982.
Got it. So it's a
Rose Bowl.
And it's a rock concert that is, and we're dealing with nuclear proliferation around the world. And this was what this was for, correct?
Right. It was called Peace Sunday, and it was a no nukes rally and music festival. And there were 100,000 people there at the Rose Bowl, and they were all there to listen to this lineup of music, and interwoven with all these speakers, advocates, environmentalists, celebrities, politicians, thought leaders were all taking the stage in between each band set. Yet most people were there to listen to the music like I was. I wasn't. I didn't really have any guidance in terms of being an activist, or really, like I said, my value system then was I was there for the party. And yet around 10 minutes after the concert started, the MC came to the stage and announced that she had just heard from a report that somebody had left their dog in the car. It was going to be a very hot day, and if that was your dog, to please go roll your windows down. And there was this low grade boo over the, in the crowd, but then the band came and everybody soon forgot about the dog, but I didn't. And I was sitting stage left in the loge. Of course I couldn't be heard, but I imagine if I was just relentless in shouting, "What about the dog?" eventually they would have to report back to the crowd, because of course everyone wants to know. This is what was going through my mind at the time. Yeah, it was just an intestinal fortitude. And I was drowned out, by the next band or the next speaker. And as soon as my moment came again, as soon as there was silence or in between, band and speaker, I started up again. But now my friends next to me started in with me, and we started chanting, "What about the dog? What about the dog?" We didn't stop. Got drowned out. The next time we had a moment of silence or opportunity, our whole section started chanting with me. You know how a wave starts, right? You're just relentless and consistent and persistent. And sure enough, by noon, the entire stadium was chanting, "What about the dog?" every chance they could. And so this struck me as wildly cool, a really cool experience, until about 4 o'clock that day, when I was walking back into the arena from the concession stand during a break, and I heard it had started without me. And I'm like, okay, perhaps this is how you start a movement. Maybe there is something here. Around dusk, my girlfriend elbowed me and she goes, "Sandy, did you hear that?" And I wasn't really paying attention because the crowd was going crazy. I said, "What's going on?" She said, "The MC just announced, so you want to know about the dog. The dog is fine." And the crowd was going wild. I otherwise would have missed it if my friend didn't tell me. I might have even forgotten about it. It was a rock concert. It was a long, hot day in the sun. There was lots of beer and other things floating in the air. And so, we left that day knowing this was something really interesting. We even made these bumper stickers or window decals that said, "What about the dog? ... Peace Sunday." Put them on our windows, my friends and I. And every now and then I'd get a honk or a thumbs up or something, just a random, odd, random,
Sure.
somebody noticing. And then I forgot about it. And then about 15 years later, I told this story. It was a little bit longer than that. I told this story, and my friends around me who heard it have been insisting that I write this story, but I didn't have enough of a story to write, so I kept putting it down.
Mm-hmm.
And then about a year and a half ago, I picked it up and I started writing again, because then I realized, well, I've got a couple of really cool stories that are equally and wildly synchronistic, meaningful, and I consider a little miraculous.
Yes.
And so I thought, what would happen if I started lining them up? Now, at the same time, I had heard from Jean Shinoda Bolen, who's, if you don't know who Jean Shinoda Bolen is, please Google her. She is an amazing thought leader. She's an expert, in my opinion, on goddess archetype. Many of her books are required reading in women's studies courses all around the world, actually. Anyway, so I had heard from Jean this word liminal. And at the time, I had only understood the word liminal to mean threshold, and that it was a very clunky word to say. It was a very complicated word.
Hard in English to liminal. Yeah, the MN and all that. Yes.
Yeah, for the longest time, I had the M's and the N's confused. At any rate, but while I'm writing, I'm thinking about that word, and I'm like, okay, wait, what was going on inside of me? Because, I want to kind of expand on what was happening in that moment, for example, at Peace Sunday. And I started thinking about that threshold. What was it that, what was that gaping hole to explore that went from, reckless partying teenage girl or 21-year-old, teenage mentality, and spiritual activist? Yes. What was going on in that moment? And I thought, oh, okay, that was reverent listening. That was honoring my body. That was paying attention to my gut wisdom. That was following through on that which I really didn't even stop to question, because there was something intestinal, something in my integrity that knew that this was important, and that to throw off the bow lines of what may feel safe or comfortable or not look weird or unpopular, because it's the right thing to do. And 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 that was sort of a pattern I noticed throughout the course of my life. And then the more I started realizing that kind of condition that was at play, I started remembering all these other stories. So I started stringing them together. And then I realized, well, each of these stories, each were anchored with a different philosophy or a different methodology or a different, science. So whether it was reverent listening or understanding the meaning of the trust frequency, paying attention to intergenerational trauma and kind of the baggage we carry from our ancestral past, and our responsibility to the future, mindfulness, understanding that thoughts happen outside of the cells in our mind, of our thinking, broadcasting out to the field, the football field, if you will, in that case. And so I started appointing each one of those skills to each one of the appropriate stories. And before I knew it, I had 12 chapters with 2 parts each. One, the wild story, followed by what was going on, and then citing the work done by the specific thought leader, scientist, what have you, that I had learned from, and in almost all cases, but maybe one or two, personally. They're my own personal experience with that individual, like Jean Bolin or Dr. James Doty or Rianne Eisler, and by the way, of all of whom I know, and have interviewed before. And so, yeah, it's just, it unfolded in that way, Dennis. It unfolded in a way that I couldn't plan.
Exactly. And when it did unfold, I mean, you had to listen, because we get these impellings from our angels, or from whatever metaphor that we choose. It appears to me that the universe is user friendly, that I can project upon it what I need, and it will give it back to me in a way that I can digest it, which is one of the reasons why there's many different ways of hearing our truths and the ways that I'm doing. And what I love about your approach and how it is that it is very open-hearted and open-minded and open-ended. You don't tell me this is the one way, this is the only way that you can do. You say, look inside. You have that wisdom inside you. Take a look and listen.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. I have no authority on any one of the skills or lessons that I've picked up. I'm an authority on my own life.
Yes.
And if this is a inspiration or a model for you to be an authority on your own life, then that would be, my soul will rejoice if that's what you walk away with. You mentioned something about this the universe being receptive, and this
Yes.
relationship, and I do believe we live in a loving, conscious universe who's always got our back, who's always working on our behalf.
Yes.
Even when it doesn't feel like it, especially when it doesn't feel like it. Especially, that's the key. It's like I'm beginning to learn how to relish those moments of that I don't go looking for them, but when they happen, and one happened not too long ago, that was so uncomfortable and hurtful, actually. It's like, okay, how am I going to turn this into a liminal odyssey? And it transformed it for me, and I grew from that. But to your point, I think that really requires vulnerability.
Yes.
And that requires trust of the universe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in your stories so much, because you have been through it all. You have been through
I hope so.
betrayal. Well, no, I mean, what I'm saying is that your journey, you have been through personal betrayal, through people working through and having their own paths that did not align with yours, and there had to be some difficulties and challenges and all that. And what I love is the way that you look at them and you look at the lesson and say, wait a minute, there is a lesson here for me. And I'm going to look at that lesson because it takes me out of my victimhood. There is no victimhood in anywhere in this book. I don't get to be in a victim.
Yeah. I mean, why would I lead anybody to victimhood anyway? But yeah, I mean, thank you. I appreciate that. And I've tried to dupe myself into believing I was the victim just because it felt comforting and what have you in the moment. And there's something else that's really important here, I think, and that is, well, two things I would like to point out. One is that I don't think you can just read this and get it. I think it's a practice, just like meditation is a practice.
Absolutely. I do not. That is
Yeah.
so much. I'm so glad you're saying that.
Yeah. And I think about what Kay Lindahl, the Sacred Art of Listening, who is, my accompaniment on the first chapter, the Sacred Art of Listening, because that reverent listening was going on inside of me. And what does it mean to really listen? And what having question assumptions kind of comes right there with that. But Kay doesn't teach us how to listen. She teaches us how to prepare to listen. And perhaps this book might serve as a guide to help prepare us to be spiritual activists.
Yes.
Prepare us all, because ultimately, Dennis, we are in a spiritual evolutionary, beg your pardon, an evolutionary growth spurt. We're catching up to our spirituality, I think.
I agree. I agree. And one of the big things for me over this course has been the rise of the female. The rise of the female in business, in spirituality, and female leadership, and getting that. And I love the phrase "the future is female." I've been saying it over and over again, and which I got from the book that I'm having, and that I feel so strongly, because it's a joining. It's an and gate. It's a what we need, and the women that I'm seeing standing up, and because what I feel this book is, and that your place is, it helps me in the same way that Joseph Campbell helped me with that path, that part of the path. This feels like a continuation of that. Your direction and your help is very much like he had when he was doing it, but now in 2022, this is your way, because you've now been going out on tour with the book. You've been going to Unity. I really am interested in what are you hearing from the people that have that?
Oh my gosh. A friend of mine, I was on a call with her, and sort of indicative. Everybody seems to show me the pages that they've written all over.
Exactly.
And I was on a call with a friend who also is, she's with the Course in Miracles. She's going to be doing a workshop.
Yes.
On the Course in Miracles through the Liminal Odyssey, or Liminal Odyssey through the Course in Miracles. Actually, she sees the relativity there. She goes, "I've destroyed your book." I said, "What do you mean?" She opened it up, and all the pages, all the white spaces were all filled in. For me, that means that it's just relatable. It's just, personal stories are just relatable. And we all have these personal stories to share. And I'm just speaking something you all know. There might be one thing that might be a surprise. And this is something that I discovered. And also to answer your question, yeah, I'm kind of getting all kinds of different, feedback on the book. Some consider it, this relatable memoir, which it's not a whole memoir, because that's not the intention. It's a stringing together of these stories. Some have told me that synchronicities are all around them every day now, that they're paying more attention. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great. That makes me so happy. Others are telling me that, like me, I've heard this twice now, body awareness has been a real awakening for them. And you know what the byproduct of that is, Dennis? And this I can actually say because it's real measurable results. I've lost 10 pounds. And this is not a diet book, okay? But I am honoring and having reverence for my body now and going, oh, I'm not hungry. Why am I going to eat? I'm getting all the nutrients I need, you know, but there's some measurable results. I've actually lost weight, and I've heard this from somebody else. So I'm like, okay, that's great. And ultimately, fear too. I've heard a lot of folks tell me that it's really helped them kind of get fear to a digestible place where they can actually kind of, you know, remove the wheat from the chaff, see what the real issue is, and take it on and be done with it. It's like a small pill to swallow now, not a big monster to have to chew one limb at a time, which never gets you to the healing. So that's what I'm hearing out in the world. But I would like to say that there is something that's unique to the philosophy of the Liminal Odyssey that I haven't found out in the world yet. Because like I said, all of these skills, they're all tried and true and challenged and with great merit, including Joseph Campbell's, you know, rendition of the hero's journey. And that is that it's like when you take the collective of all the skills that you have in your tool bag, regardless of what those skills are, meditation practice, breathing techniques, mindfulness, reverent listening, recognizing the trust frequency, whatever things help you come to a place of kind of reconciliation for what's going on in your world, when they operate together as a unit, when you don't leave any of them out in the moment, they operate as they're a collective whole. And there we have coherence amongst them all. For me, it's a collection of all of the 12 skills and practices collectively working together. And some of the bonding agents of that collective body is the trust frequency, which please go read the Trust Frequency book. It's by Connie Baxter Marlowe and Andrew Cameron Bailey. Beautiful big orange book. Go find it. It's for me. I don't know where my life would be without it, or this book for that matter. The trust frequency, reverent listening, and recognizing multisensory perception. This comes from Gary Zukav, another master who I've learned this from directly. And that is recognizing that we're only operating at a limited level of understanding the senses. There's this additional sense that's outside of them all that we can't really put our finger on, but it's who we are.
Well, we know that just from, if we only take light, for example, there's only a small spectrum of light that we can see that is visible. That is not the extent of light. Light has a frequency that goes way beyond, and so if we, and this is the same concept, there is so much more going on that we can then tune. If we have the right instruments, we can see all these bands of light, and if I have this instrument and I tune it, I can begin to see those.
And we do have the instrument. We do have the instruments. We do have an orchestra going on inside of us at all time. If we would just like stop and honor it and practice listening to it, just practice paying attention to it, practice awareness, practice questioning assumptions. Remember, this loving universe has always got our back.
And tell me a little about you at this age. What this time of life, because I'm 74 now, so I get a chance to experience this time in my life. I get to experience my skin, I get to experience my body, I get a chance to experience my energy, I get a chance to experience things that the world tells me I should, but then it's different when I experience it if I don't just listen to what the world says the 74-year-old male is supposed to feel like or whatever. So at this time, because you talk about the crone and you talk about this in the journey. Can you talk about your journey in this and where you are, please? So that, because there's so many women that are coming into their power now, and they're getting a chance to be able to experience it. And we don't have a lot of, we just don't have a lot of books or press or work that are the guidebooks in this, please.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's 61. And I get all my life, I heard my mother, grandmothers say, at a certain age, you just don't care what other people think. Well, I don't know if that'll ever happen. I hope it doesn't, because I care about people. So I care about what people think. But what I think elevates is my confidence in who I am and what's important. And who am I? What are the standards that I'm making decisions upon? And so I think that I think that that speaks to the crone wisdom. Mm-hmm. And you have the maiden, the mother, and the crone. Maiden, of course, is coming into your womanhood, the first blood flow. Mother is the level of your womb comes into its new purpose as a life-giving source. And with that comes responsibility and removing yourself from your own self-interest and paying attention to the world around you, particularly to care for your children and your community. And then comes the crone wisdom, where you're coming into your own wisdom, where the blood flow, that blood stays in our womb now, doesn't flow to nutrient our wisdom, or to nourish our wisdom. And so I think all three of those can be in play in all time. I had to have had some crone wisdom at 21 in the stands at Peace Sunday. So these aren't stages you leave behind and graduate to. They're all alive in us, but they elevate in different times of our life, and they come into grand focus. That's why I say in the book, it's so important to know who's driving us right now, which one of them are at play right now, and perhaps it's all of them at once.
It could be. So there could be aspects of the maiden in your ideas, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily that every woman must bear a child in order to go through the mother phase.
No. Oh, no. No way. No. Biologically and by nature's design, this is where the flow comes from. Mm-hmm. Yet, no, it's absolutely not. Even if you've had a hysterectomy, intuitively, instinctively, we're wired that way. So that's just the the physiology of a woman.
Sure.
And to pay attention to that and then to honor it. I don't suggest anybody go around suggesting they're of crone wisdom, because I think if you have to say that, you're not there. I say, they're alone, you stand on hollow ground. But if you're out there touting it, you got to put your shoes back on. You're not ready. You're not there
exactly yet. But this is what I love about your every aspect of this wonderful book, and every aspect is a being verb, not a past tense. You have not gone up and are then preaching everyone to come up to you. You're saying join me along the path, because I am learning and growing at every instant that I possibly can be, because this is what my path is.
Yeah, and I think that's what our soul purpose is. Our sole purpose is to live into our authentic integrity, our wholeness of who we are, and honor that. What a shame. I mean, at 21, you asked who I was back then. I wasn't asking my soul or listening into my soul's purpose. I don't know a lot of young people who do, or they're really dialed into that. But how many people go through life not really even asking, and just going, I got to go by other standards. That's part of the whole patriarchal BS. Enough of that. That doesn't work anymore. And that's why that's what the piling on of crises right now is showing us, that those systems are failing because they just don't hold water. They kind of got us to a certain place. We needed the industrial age, we needed all these things, but we really, when I say the future is feminine, I'm
Mhm.
referring to the balance of the divine feminine,
Yes,
which we're seeing in men all the time. You're a prime example of that. You and Clay Boykin are prime examples of that, and all of the
thank you.
men that you've brought into my life through your programming. So and relationships. So and I have a number of friends too who also
Sure.
exemplify that. But not but and it's just it's just time.
Well, if Clay were here, one of the things he would say, as he does very often, Clay Boykin, to say, the patriarchy wounds everyone. It
Uh-huh.
isn't just, this isn't a minimization of men, it's a freeing of men from a stricture that no longer helps us to be able to learn and grow.
And the pathway there is through feminine attributes.
Yes.
Right. And I just want to go back to something you said, because that reminded me. I love what you said about being in the maiden stage
Hmm.
in terms of creativity.
Yes.
We need new creative solutions to old problems. We have to play. We have
Yes.
to be in our joy.
Hmm.
Because that's where the solutions are. That's where we get to create and get messy, color outside the lines, and have fun. Doesn't have to be heavy lifting. You have to commit to it. There's intention, and then there's will. They're partners, right? I have all the great intentions in the world, but do I have the will to carry them out? That's where
Exactly.
will gets slippery. So
Yes.
gotta watch that will.
And where are you? Where are you now? So here we are at the beginning of June 2022. How can you both look at what the opportunities are for you to be able to take this, and what are you going through right now?
I just completed recording the audio for the audiobook. As a
Wonderful.
matter of fact, I was just editing a recording. I didn't record it, of Dr. Nina Meyerhoff's foreword by Gary Christmas. Just an
Yes.
incredible voice and a more incredible human being. And it's funny you asked that, Dennis, because I was the director of sales and marketing for a major home builder before 9/11, and I woke up to this whole new understanding and got really into the spiritual world. But those tendencies of control and planning and charting my path, and setting my goals and achieving them and checking them and readjusting and all of those skills don't go away. And I am just so open right now to what's going on. I have speaking engagements lined up. Unity Church, particularly Unity Church in Las Vegas, is doing an entire month on liminality starting tomorrow. This Sunday.
Wow.
So I'm going to be very present there, and I'm actually leading a service one of the Sundays, and it's just kind of unfolding like that, and kind of like writing this book. I'm open and willing, and we're seeing. Workshops are coming up. I have an introductory workshop coming up in July, and play shop. I call it a play shop, not a workshop. And what's really surprised me, this is so cool because, it didn't come out of my mind, is book circles. There's like 3 book circles right now that are exploring the Liminal Odyssey. And one is through S.A.R.A.H, and I'm a part of that. And the gal who started it had some unexpected things. She couldn't continue on. And I'm like, well, I didn't really want to do this because, I want to kind of not be there. I want everyone to kind of explore it on their own without feeling like I'm an influence or anything. But I'm a part of that, and that's really amazing to be a fly on the wall for. So I'm being like my friend who's doing a series on the Course in Miracles through the Liminal Odyssey, through the lens of the Liminal Odyssey. I can't plan much of this. It's got to chart itself.
There is no way that there is so much about what, and I love about what you were talking about synchronicities everywhere, because it's so easy for me to get wrapped up in my life and in the doing of life that I can not be aware that synchronicities are everywhere. If I will just stop and breathe a second before I'll do and go, and I'll hear that whisper, I'll get a nudge, and I'll just follow that nudge, and then suddenly something appears that I couldn't see it any other way once it is there. And how would I have and I would have walked right past it.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. That requires what I call timefulness,
Yes.
paying attention, questioning assumptions, looking closely at what does that mean? Something, and the more you are aware of it, the more it will show, it'll be a blinding light in your face. You can't step over it. You can't pass by it. And then when you do stop and honor it, then, or ask the question, what does this mean? And let your imagination go wild. It's miraculous. It's so much fun. And okay, maybe you don't come up with anything now. It might show up later. That might be a meaningful connection later. And even if it doesn't in this lifetime, who knows? It's a practice.
Exactly. Is that if it weren't worth it to do the practice, it will never be worth it to get the result.
Ah, wow. I'm going to quote you.
I'm learning that over and over again. There is no there. It has to be it has to be now. I have to get, if I'm sitting there and saying, okay, I'm going to have my joy once I get to this place. It always will precede me. I will never get there, because the only time I can have that is now during the practice of getting there.
Yeah. Be here now.
Yeah. It's some very, very simple. So you're seeing one of the things that I love about S.A.R.A.H is that so many women are emerging, that we can hear their voices. I mean, I get to be in a place you could never be, which is a place where only men are. And I'm telling you that men, when I work as a communication coach, and I work with senior leaders in major companies, when men are there alone, I'm telling you, the conversation has changed from what it was 10 years ago and what it was. They're looking at women more as talent rather than as competition or an outlier. And this is so the conversation has shifted. And this is very exciting for me, because I've found that whenever there is a greater diversity at the senior levels, suddenly ideas and trajectories and ways of working and ways of being are expanded beyond anything we could when we were just old white men like me at the table.
Ah, that's amazing to hear. Yeah. S.A.R.A.H, the Spiritual and Religious Lines for Hope, the Women's Interfaith group, the circle teaches us how to be. So somewhere, the circle is speaking to create that condition. Circle's really in charge.
What have we not talked about today that's on your mind and on your heart, just for today? Because I would love the opportunity to be able to continue to connect with you along your journey as you're learning more and more about yourself and learning. But what for today? What's going on?
Well, I haven't expressed my gratitude to you, so let me do that. Thank you for holding the space. There's nothing more fulfilling than a really juicy, spontaneous conversation. I really appreciate that and love it and relish it. And so often wish the camera was rolling when we've had other conversations. Yeah. So thank you for doing that and recording this. And just your generosity and what you had to say about the book. You blew my mind. I didn't expect to be compared to Joseph Campbell in such an incredible, generous way. I mean, and I don't want to be, because he's such the philosophy of the hero's journey is so important. But like the philosophy of the hero's journey, only we can stop in the spaces in between.
Exactly.
And realize that. And like I say in the book, I don't think it's of linear fashion or even a spiral fashion.
I don't
It's
either.
zigs and zags. At the end of the book, the last chapter, Acorn Rain and Birkenau, where I talk about my experience at Auschwitz and this complete revelation, that a resurrection,
Yes.
almost, which was also my call to action at the exact same time. So, those are the two ends of the spectrum for Joseph Campbell. So for me, they were players together, and they're players sometimes all day long. So yeah, and I think those synchronicities and these moments of opportunity to stop and pay attention and practice mindfulness, I think that they can come in chunks of time. I think that they can be moment to moment in between
Yes.
the breaths. And to recognize that we are in this liminal space, generally speaking, culturally
Mm-hmm.
and individually at the same time, which makes perfect sense. And let's face it, our culture needs a rework.
Yes.
We need an evolution in our culture. And a culture is nothing more than a collective agreement of the people that are creating the culture. So when we all come to the agreement, and I think the bottom line agreement, this is something I might sound judgy on, is that we all show up in our authentic integrity.
Yes.
Show up who you are. That's all you got to do. And when I say integrity, it's not a moral judgment. The word means wholeness. And you can't fool the universe.
No, that is not. Yeah.
You can't fool the universe. And your universe is your accountability partner. And for me, my readers are my accountability partner. So I'm just feeling the responsibility coming from all angles. My mother crone is in full engagement right now. So, yeah.
Thank you, Sande Hart. As always, an opportunity to spend some time with you is a time to remind me. Everything I've ever felt about any profound spiritual truth has always been oh, yeah, I knew that. It's always a reminding. And this is what this book continues to do over and over again. It reminds me of what I know to be the truth, that I have forgotten, or I have walked past, or I have let just move into the corner. I bring it back into that, and suddenly I have that there is a rhythm. There is my ears are open, my heart is open, my eyes are open, my mind is open. And that's what that's what the Liminal Odyssey has meant to me. And as you see, my marks are little all the way through the places where I have it. And I know I said that the future is female, and you say that the future is feminine. I'm just using that as my own because I'm very gender oriented right now, because I'm really working to push as much as I can to get women into positions to get their voices heard, because we need this so much.
And that wasn't lost to me. I really appreciate and honor that. Totally.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that.
My pleasure. And Sande, thank you for joining me on a reasonably spontaneous conversation on a beautiful morning. You're in California, and you're in the Pacific
time
I'm
zone. In California.
Yeah, and in the Pacific time zone, I'm Central, and you got up early for me, and thank you so much. And love and hugs to you, dear.
Thank you, Dennis. That was so much fun.
We'll see you next time.
Bless you. Okay, bye-bye.
This episode of Reasonably Spontaneous Conversations has been brought to you in part by In Search of the New Compassionate Male. For more information, go to newcompassionatemale.com.